Why China is building ships in the desert. Take a look at this satellite image from China. At first glance, it seems like nothing more than empty, barren desert. But right in the middle, there's something unusual, a structure that doesn't quite belong. Zoom in, and it looks like an aircraft carrier, the kind used by militaries around the world as floating air bases, complete with runways, fighter jets, and weapons. But this one isn't floating in the ocean, it's sitting in the middle of the desert. The image was taken over the Taklamakan Desert in northwestern China. Normally, aircraft carriers operate in the harsh conditions of the open sea. This desert may be dry rather than wet, but it's just as extreme. The Taklamakan Desert itself is unique. Unlike surrounding deserts made mostly of rock, this one is almost entirely sand. It's the second largest sand desert in the world, vast, uninhabited, and seemingly untouched by humans. From above, it looks like a giant lifeless eye made of sand, like something from another planet. So why, of all places, would the Chinese military build these structures here? In recent years, China has made headlines for rapidly expanding its aircraft carrier program. Just 15 years ago, China didn't have a single aircraft carrier. Today, it has 3. But if we look closely at the shapes in these satellite images, something doesn't add up. The designs don't match China's own carriers. Instead, they strongly resemble American ones, specifically the distinctive shape of the U.S. Navy's Gerald R. Ford-class carrier, the latest and most advanced in the fleet. And that's not all. Near the same area, another shape emerges, this time resembling an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, one of the most common warships in the U.S. Navy. The details are striking, not just the outline of the ship, but features like the bridge, funnels, and even the missile launch systems. But these aren't real ships. They're flat, replica targets built in the desert. Historical satellite images confirm this. Back in 2020, the site started as grids of cubes and poles laid out in the exact shape of U.S. warships. Later, the outlines became clearer and more detailed, turning into full-scale mock-ups. The aircraft carrier mock-ups also evolved over time, with different sizes and layouts being built, dismantled, and rebuilt again. And then there are the train tracks. Instead of running straight across the flat desert, they twist and turn in strange patterns before ending abruptly. When followed north, the tracks lead to a base with hangars, trucks, and support buildings. Follow them south, and they simply stop in the middle of nowhere. What's the purpose of all this? To understand, it helps to look at where real U.S. aircraft carriers operate. American carriers are often deployed to the South China Sea and near Taiwan, 2 major flashpoints where tensions between the U.S. and China have been rising for years. In the South China Sea, China claims nearly the entire region as its territory, despite international law recognizing it as open waters. To strengthen its claims, China has built artificial islands and military outposts on reefs and shoals. The U.S., in response, regularly sails its warships through the area to challenge those claims, insisting on freedom of navigation in international waters. Then there's Taiwan, a self-governing democracy that China considers a breakaway province. Beijing has repeatedly said it could retake Taiwan by force if necessary, while the U.S. maintains support for Taiwan's defense. Both of these conflicts explain why U.S. carriers are stationed nearby, and why China might be building full-scale models of them in the desert. Experts believe these mock-ups are practice targets for China's missile programs. The tall metal poles could be sensors to measure the accuracy and impact of missile strikes, or radar reflectors to simulate the radar profile of real ships. Satellite images from other test sites even show craters, suggesting missiles have already hit their marks. But hitting a stationary target is easy. Real warships move, and that's where the strange train tracks come in. Another mock-up sits on a section of track with sharp turns and curves. Analysts believe this allows China to simulate a moving ship, even one taking evasive maneuvers to avoid being hit. Photos from a Chinese arms convention even show scale models of this system, confirming that at least some of the tracks and mock-ups are used for live-fire missile tests. China isn't the first to do this. In 2014, Iran built a replica U.S. carrier for missile practice. The U.S. itself has used mock-ups of foreign weapons for training, including replicas of Chinese fighter jets and even operational Russian aircraft. But what worries U.S. military planners is the type of weapon China is testing here, the Dongfang 21D, a ballistic missile designed specifically to hit moving aircraft carriers. Launched from inside China, it flies high into the atmosphere before releasing a maneuverable warhead that can adjust its course mid-flight, making it extremely hard to intercept. China has also built up its satellite network to track targets in real time, further increasing the missile's accuracy. Military analysts warn that if these weapons work as intended, they could force U.S. carriers to operate much farther away from conflict zones like Taiwan or the South China Sea. That would make it harder for U.S. aircraft to reach their targets, weakening America's ability to project power in the region. And that may be the point. By building and testing these weapons out in the open where satellites can see them, China is sending a message: we have the tools to keep U.S. carriers at bay. Taiwan, meanwhile, is preparing for the worst, recently holding large-scale military drills simulating a Chinese invasion with over 22,000 troops.